Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday worship on this beautiful Christmas morning. And yeah, I do have two announcements to make. First is that our Christmas party that was supposed to be on December 23rd, so the Friday, has been moved because of the weather. So we have not fully decided on the final date yet, but the tentative date is January 6th. So if you can make it to the new date, please let me know in my email, or you can still sign up as well. And also, if on December 28th to 30th is our retreat, so remember to come to church by 1 p.m. We are planning to leave, so actually come at 12:45, and then we're coming back on the 30th at around 3 p.m. or 3:30 p.m. So come to church at 12:45 on Wednesday, December 28th, and your parents can pick you up at 3:30 on December 30th, which is a Friday. So that being said, I'm going to start with the prayer, a Christmas prayer actually, from the Book of Common Prayer. So let's pray. O God, you have caused this holy night to shine with the brightness of the true light. Grant that we, who have known the mystery of that light on earth, may also enjoy him perfectly in heaven, where with you and the Holy Spirit he lives and reigns, one God, in glory everlasting. Amen.
Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Oh, Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Teach my song to rise to you when temptation comes my way. When I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. So teach my song to rise to you when temptation comes my way. When I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Yeah. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
The passage for today comes from Isaiah chapter 9 verses 1 to 7. But there will be no gloom for those who were in anguish. In the former time he brought into contempt the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the latter time he will make glorious the way of the sea, the land beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the nations. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who live in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined. You have multiplied the nation, you have increased its joy. They rejoice before you, as with joy at the harvest, as people exult when dividing plunder. For the yoke of their burden and the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For all the boots of the tramping warriors and all the garments rolled in blood shall be burned as fuel for the fire. For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests upon his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace. For the throne of David and his kingdom, he will establish and uphold it with justice and with righteousness. From this time onwards and forevermore, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. What is the most beautiful sight you have ever seen? Is it a beautiful, nice skyline, maybe downtown Toronto? Or is it an amazing piece of art you've seen in a gallery? Is it like a natural beauty, like a mountain view or ocean view or something like that, somewhere you went? Or is it the face of your crush? Well, for me, the most amazing, the most beautiful sight I've ever seen is the beautiful night sky. When I was your age, I used to go to a mission trip to a native reserve called Canva every year with my youth group at Yongnak. And everywhere, it would be like a week or two long usually, and during the final night we'll have a night of celebration, and for that night we will be given permission to just stay up and go out to the dock and just with our sleeping bags and lie down and just look at the stars above us. And since it's far away from the cities, we will be able to see all the stars. There'll be like literally millions of stars, and we'll sometimes see falling stars, and we just spend hours and hours throughout the night just looking up at the stars, maybe talking with a friend or with my pastor or something like that. So, interesting fact of the night sky is the stars, all the stars that I've seen many years ago at the native reserve, they're all still there. They're all still outside in the sky. Yet, as long as it's not cloudy and the clouds are not covering it, yet most of us, when we look at the night sky, it's pretty empty, right? We see maybe one, maybe two stars, maybe like a couple of stars that are part of the Big Dipper or something, but usually we don't see that many stars up there. Why is that? It's because of something called light pollution. So the abundance of artificial light, lights in the streets, lights on the cars, light in the houses that are still on during the night, those things, those lights, that artificial lights that people produce, disperse into the sky that creates this artificial glow that makes the night sky brighter, and that dampens the natural light coming from the stars. So they actually end up just covering up the stars, and that's why we don't see a lot of stars when we look in the night sky. It's only when we go far, far away from the cities, like I have during the summers when I was your age, when we went to the native reserve way up north, right? only then we are allowed to see the beautiful night sky, because we don't have a lot of artificial light or light pollution. Just like the light pollution in our cities, our lives are often filled with so much distractions that blind us from the truth. Just like the artificial lights that distract us from the true, real lights from the stars, the fake joys that our world offers often distract us from the true joy that comes from God. And this is especially true on Christmas Day. What comes to mind when you think of Christmas? Is it Santa Claus, that old man, white man with red dress, whatever you call it, right? Is it that dude? Is it Mariah Carey and Michael Bublé when you turn on the radio and the Christmas songs come out? Is it the Boxing Day sale that you look forward to so you can buy your next, I don't know, game or next outfit or next whatever you look forward to buying? Or is it your romantic crush? Because, you know, as you know, Christmas is often portrayed as this very romantic time for many people. Well, no matter what it is that comes to your mind, you'll soon realize that our Christmas, our modern day Christmas, is cluttered with so many material things and sentimentality, right? Whether it's like good feelings or just holidays cheers or just material things that we can buy or all these sales. It's easy, even for Christians like us, because of all these distractions, to miss the true meaning of Christmas. That being said, let's look at our passage again. And when Isaiah wrote this, let's talk about what the context was behind this. So by the time that Isaiah was born and he's writing these prophecies, Judah and Israel, the two nations that comprise of the people of Israel, they all turned away from God, relying and trusting on other gods and even alliances with foreign nations instead of trusting in God, who, you know, have created them, who have led them, who has chosen them, who has freed them from the Egyptian slavery, as we have read last time, right? And while that's happening, there's this big, scary empire forming in the north called the Assyrian Empire, and they're coming, marching from the north all the way down, and they're destroying everything in their path, killing everyone that they see or enslaving them away. And in the passage we just read, we read about the lands of Zebulun and Naphtali, and these are the two clans that were at the northern part of Israel, and they were the first to be completely destroyed and devastated by this marching Assyrian invasion. Yet, Isaiah, when he writes this, he shares a message of hope to the devastated lands of Zebulun and Naphtali. We who live in Canada, such a peaceful country that hasn't been really part of a war in a while, right, have no idea what it feels like to live in a war-torn country. We kind of get a glimpse of it these days when we watch the news, because as most of us know, there's a war that's going on in Ukraine as the Russian army is invading, right? And when we watch the news, they sometimes show us a glimpse of what those cities look like after they've been bombarded, after soldiers are fighting in those cities. So, or we can imagine if there's a foreign army that came to Toronto, right? And they're bombing and burning most of the buildings down, they're shooting and killing everyone in sight, and those who survive, they take them as slaves and make them serve them under the threat of death. This is why Isaiah describes these people of the Naphtali and Zebulun, the northern people, as living and walking in darkness with no glimpse of hope. After Isaiah's prophecy, right? To these people whose homes are destroyed, whose family members were all killed or enslaved, whose freedom was taken away. It is to these people Isaiah shares the good news. He tells them that light has finally appeared before them, and he promises them that they will be filled with joy, and also promises them that war and their oppression will finally end. And he describes how they will burn all the weapons and outfits of war, and how God will break the yoke that's enslaving them, that's on them, right? So what is the sign of this promise? Of the promise of peace and of freedom? What is God's proof that he will fulfill his promise? Isaiah declares, a child has been born for us. And what will be his name? There's 4 names, very, very grandiose and kind of amazing to listen to, right? Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. This was God's promise that he will send the Messiah, promised king, to his people of Israel to establish a reign of everlasting peace and justice. God's eternal kingdom where all will be well with his people who will forever live in peace, wholeness, and harmony. This is the messianic promise that even Jewish people, even to this day, hold on to. Right? After Isaac's prophecy, there were a couple of candidates who kind of seemed to fit this description of someone who brings the reign of peace. King Hezekiah, who was who became king during Isaiah's lifetime, is one of those candidates, right? He trusted in God when the Assyrian army continued to march towards Jerusalem, and instead of trusting other gods or instead of trusting foreign countries, he listens to Isaiah and trusts in God. And God miraculously saves the city of Jerusalem from the Assyrian army by attacking them with a plague and also attacking their homeland from another foreign country, and they turn away and the king is betrayed and killed. So Israel is miraculously saved from their doom. However, later in life, Hezekiah is filled with pride and he welcomes these people from Babylon and shows them all his city, how it looks like, and even all his treasures and stuff, which only fuels these people with ambition that later down the line, they are the ones, the kingdom of Babylon is the one who comes down and conquers Jerusalem, destroys the city, and takes the people of Judah as captives. And when we read the history of Israel, most of the kings that come out, Israel and the kingdom of Judah, they're terrible. They're not great people. They're very sinful. They turn away from God. They're faithless, right? And even the best ones like Hezekiah, even the most faithful ones like even Josiah, right? They end up failing to meet the criteria of Messiah, right? And that is why the Jewish people to this day continue to wait for God to send their Messiah. We as Christians believe that this prophecy was fulfilled by Jesus. He was the promised child who will establish everlasting peace. However, many modern Jews to this day do not accept Jesus as the Messiah. They don't think Jesus was the promised king sent by God. And it's really hard to blame them because although Jesus came on Christmas Day 2,000 years ago, when we look around in the world, we still see that all is not well, right? We still see wars happening. We still see people suffering. We still see a lot of injustice. So, for the Jewish people, it's obvious that everlasting peace and wholeness promised by Isaiah has yet to arrive. So they say Jesus is not the Messiah. But when we read the passage carefully, we realize and learn that the birth of the promised child is a sign that points towards the future when God's promises will be fulfilled. Jesus' birth is a sign of God's promise that he will bring true joy, freedom, and peace. If Jesus is truly who he said he is, Emmanuel, God with us, then he's the perfect child who not only is the sign, but also the person through whom God will fulfill his promises. Through Jesus' birth, God himself came into our world to rescue us from oppression under sin and death. Wherever he went, Jesus, throughout his earthly ministry, he healed people, he rescued them from evil oppression, and he also welcomed all these people into his family. And even when the world came together and condemned him and crucified him on the cross, he rose again from the dead on the third day, overcoming all evil with this life-giving love. This means that Jesus is still alive, as Christians believe, and he's powerful enough to bring God's promises to its fulfillment. He filled his family, the church, with his spirit, empowering them to continue on his life-giving ministry of love. And he promises us that Jesus will come back again. He'll return to finally complete his mission in the world, bringing everlasting peace and justice and making all things right. And he will come back again to get rid of all war, all evil, pain, suffering, sorrow, injustice, and brokenness from our world, and fill it instead with love, joy, and peace, and the full glory of God. All this was promised to us 2,000 years ago when Jesus was born in the town of Bethlehem. And God confirmed his promise again when God raised Jesus from the dead, to demonstrate that nothing at all will be able to stop God from fulfilling his promises to his people. When we hear this amazing Christmas story, it's likely that we're not all that impacted by it. It doesn't really touch us in our hearts too often. It's because most of our hearts are not prepared for the true meaning of Christmas. So when we look back to our passage, the depth of the darkness that the people of Israel was living in makes the light shine all the while brighter. And the reason why Isaiah's prophecy gave these people so much hope was because of how devastated they were in their present moment. One of my favorite movies of all time is Lord of the Rings, and in the second movie, The Two Towers, there's a climactic scene at this fortress called Helm's Deep. And if you watch the movie, it kind of culminates to that moment when all these evil forces of Uruk-hai, which is like, I'm gonna get a little bit nerdy, but they're like a hybrid between orcs and men that are created for so much strength and violence and ruthlessness, and they invade the country of Rohan and attack the Helm's Deep, the fortress that were sheltering all the people with the soldiers, right? And they continue to win. Although the castle's huge and it's very, very strong, they somehow break through the walls one at a time. And yeah, they're just overwhelmed by the sheer numbers and brutality of these evil forces. And they broke, like I said, they broke through the two walls, and now there's only one gate between them and the people, and they're right about to break in. And that is when the king laments. He says, "So much death. What can men do against such ruthless hate?" And one of the main characters, Aragorn, he says, "Come on and fight with me." And when he realizes that the day was breaking, the whole night of bloodshed and murder and massacre, after all that, he sees a light coming, and he remembers the promise made by his friend called Gandalf, right? And he says, "When the day breaks, I will come back. So look to the east. Look to the east when the sun rises." So he also remembers that promise, and with that little bit of hope, he rides out with the rest of the soldiers out into the battlefield, right? And as he does so, he then sees Gandalf at the hilltop, and he brought the reinforcements of all these knights, and they come down and they actually rescue the people and save Helm's Deep, right? And it's like I don't do it really justice, but it's an amazing part of the movie. And you have to imagine, what if the Helm's Deep people, the soldiers within that fortress, were strong enough to defeat the bad guys by themselves, right? Let's say by the time Gandalf and the reinforcement come, it's already done. Like all the bad guys are dead, and they're like, "Oh, it took you long enough. You already finished the job," right? How anticlimactic would it be? And would like Gandalf's promise that he will come at the daybreak be all that impactful for them? No, because they didn't really need him, right? That's kind of what it would be like for us when we think everything's all right with us, right? When we hear the Christmas message. And imagine if Isaiah preached this news, right? Like a child is born to us and he'll bring peace and he'll, end wars and he'll free you guys, right? Imagine he's saying that to a prosperous nation when Israel, everything was going well, everything's peaceful and everything's, seems all right. Then they wouldn't really listen to Isaiah either, right? Yeah. And to go back to the earlier analogy, just like how the beautiful nice sky and this that's always there is covered up by the light pollution of our cities, right? Our false sense of wellness, right, can blind us from the true meaning of Christmas as well. We have to realize that Jesus didn't come into this world to make our lives a little bit better, right? Instead, the real Christmas story tells of a Savior who gives life to those who are dead, like us. Christmas doesn't mean much to people who think that their lives are already perfectly fine the way it is. Right? For example, it's especially true if your life is full of blessings from God, all the good things from God. And I'm one of those people whose lives are filled with God's blessings. Right? God has blessed me with such a wonderful family to grow up with. God has blessed me with a perfect wife. God has blessed me with a wonderful group of friends. And finally, God has blessed me with you guys, Milal, Ohana, which are amazing group of students, right? Yet, recently, God began to unveil some of the cracks in my picture-perfect life. And I began to notice, it all began when one of my closest friends confronted me and told me how these days I haven't been a best friend to, like, that good of a friend to him. Right? I've been neglecting him because I was so busy with ministry and stuff. Cool. And I also began to notice how exhausted I am, right? Whenever I have a little bit of time, I would pass out, and sometimes I'll sit there in silence and exhaustion, and I don't know, I'll feel really sad for some reason, which is kind of weird as well. And also recently I hurt my wife Joyce in a really deep way, and I realized how sinful and broken I still am. And I think becoming aware of all this just before Christmas prepared me to really receive the news of Jesus' birth all the more well, because for me, like, I need Jesus. My life is broken, my life is unwell, and I need Jesus to come and rescue me, to heal me. And I'm pretty sure that is true for many of you as well. Tish Harrison Warren, who's an Anglican priest, she said this in a New York Times article, and I'm going to read it out for you. Okay? She says this: our response to the wrongness of the world and of ourselves can often be an unhealthy escapism, and we can turn to the holidays as anesthesia from pain as much as anything else. We need collective space as a society to grieve, to look long and hard at what is cracked and fractured in our world and in our lives. Only then can celebration become deep, rich, and resonant, not as a saccharine act of delusion, but as a defiant act of hope. So this Christmas, let's make some space to acknowledge the brokenness that still exists in our lives. Whether it is our loneliness, exhaustion, anxiety, sinful habits, or lack of direction and purpose, we need to face it head on, instead of turning away and distracting ourselves from these uncomfortable realities. And only then should we turn our eyes to Jesus, the promised child who came into our world. Jesus, who is the embodiment of God's promise that our brokenness is not permanent. Instead, the only thing that will be everlasting is his peace. And he will bring our healing to completion when we will fully experience his overwhelming, overflowing love with our brothers and sisters. Only after we are aware of this darkness in our lives, we will receive the Christmas hope with abundant joy, celebrating and awaiting God's salvation with faith and hope.
And I've searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. finds empty praise, and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Yes, I know it's true, and I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend.